I wanted to spend a little bit of time revisiting StoryMap templates. Um, I think Joseph and I shared these with you all probably last September in a flurry of other things and of other apps. And I wanted to take a moment to circle back to them. They've had a little bit of time to mature, and I don't want you to forget about them or let them get lost in all of the other cool things that are currently available inside of ArcGIS Online. Um, so if you are brand new and you don't know what a story map is, welcome. You're among friends. I think everybody probably knows what a story map is, so I'm not going to belabor the slide, but I want it in there in case others happen across it at a later date. Essentially, it becomes a web page that tells a story, text, images, and interactive maps. They look beautiful when done well, and amazing way to tell immersive and expressive stories using spatial data and maps. So they're very cool. They may be one of my favorite. They probably are actually my favorite every product. So um, late last summer, a piece of functionality was added to story maps, and that was the idea of being able to duplicate a story map. And essentially with story map duplication, it is a switch or a box that you check as you're publishing a story map that you create. When you enable duplicating in your story map, it allows anybody else who is logged into ArcGIS Online come along and copy your story map. And on one hand, you may think, well, geez, I put a lot of work into this. I don't want everybody going somewhere else to look at a copy of my work. And that's understandable. You don't have to enable duplicating. There are times when it's appropriate and probably times when it's not. Um, when duplicating was originally launched, we thought it actually provided a great venue for outlining the kind of work or kind of story map, for example, you might want a student to create and just drop in their content, their text, their photos, their maps, but you've given them a loose structure. And I do actually think that still works effectively for that approach. Duplicating doesn't necessarily copy all the content. There are things that are linked, like embedded content, as well as interactive maps. And when you duplicate a story map, you create a link. So story map 1 may have the original content in it. When we duplicate it, story map 2, the duplicated copy, actually links into some of that content. In cases where, say, photographs were uploaded or text was added, that does actually copy over. So we'll run through a quick demonstration of this in a moment. Very useful and very easy to implement. So if we take that concept of duplication and we step it up just a little bit, we can now create story map templates. So we can either create these from scratch, or when there's a story map that has duplication enabled, we can also duplicate it into a template. So at this point, you may be thinking, all right, what's the difference between a story map and a story map template? For the user, when you come across the template, there are two big differences that you will see visually. One is this button on the story map, or story map template rather. And that button, I don't know if you can read it or not, but it says create story from template. And it's just a big fat button at the top of the screen. The other thing you'll see as you're looking at a template is you'll see these information widgets. So there's a little eye and a circle there, and then there's text that in this case, I think I put in there to help guide the user to filling out content in the next section. I've done this repeatedly, from section to section to section, to give, in this case, students a more detailed view of what I want in the subsequent space. It is similar to duplicating. It's just a little bit more powerful because these information boxes, once a student has created a story from the template, filled out the content, and they hit the publish button, these information boxes magically vaporize, and the student publishes what looks like a normal or a typical story. So they can be very useful ways of prompting the student for pieces of content. And yeah, you'll notice I've outlined some high level things that sort of stands this approach out. That idea of consistency, as well as faster to production. The students don't have to lay out the rough framework from scratch because you've already done it for them. The consistency, a lot of times if we ask for a report, whether it's a science report or a book report or a project summary, we want standard fields in them. And so that can all be achieved ahead of time. And of course, with the information widgets in there, you've got embedded guidance that's automatically removed once it's deployed. So we'll run through this workflow in a minute. We'll use an actual StoryMap template to do it. And then, of course, we are also in a world where you can duplicate a StoryMap template. So if teacher A creates a template for their students, and their students use the template to create their story maps, that's great. But then teacher B comes along and they see that template and they say, wow, that's really cool. I want to do that with my students. Teacher B can actually duplicate the template and modify it as they need to, publish the template, and then share that URL with their students. And their students can then use teacher B's template. So in that way, it's a bit like sharing a lesson plan or an activity guide or a learning structure. So it's a very flexible tool for both creating content or content outlines for your kids, but also for sharing it with fellow educators. So let me take a quick look at one of these. And do you see maybe Kate, can you tell me if you see the book report template on screen?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. So let's see up here. I am logged in, and all I've done is launch a template that I've already set up. It's a very simple template. I happen to create this, my book report template, and you'll see my information widgets and some subsequent areas where I want information published by my student. And so if I'm student A, and teacher has sent this to me, obviously I've got the create button from template. I'm already logged in, so I'm just going to hit create story from template. And you'll see what the student experience would look like when they interact with what is a template. So my book report, simplest, maybe we'll type in Great Gatsby. I'm going to type in my student name. Try not to, well, my name's already populating. Try not to bore you all, so you're not. So again, I'm following the on-screen information prompts, and then ignore my spelling. And so we can go down through and fill these things out. Now with a map, what you really need to do, the easiest thing to do with a map is actually remove it, delete it, and then replace it with your own map as a student. Again, the real power here is really just these embedded bits of text. So I'm going to leave the rest of this alone just for the purposes of time. We'll pretend as though I filled it out. I've completed my book report on The Great Gatsby. It's very clearly A+ material, and I'm ready as a student to publish my work. So I'm going to hit publish. So Under our sharing options, we've got our normal things. We've got private, we've got organization, and everyone. I'm a student, I'm just going to publish it inside my organization. I don't need to share it with a group. And I have advanced options. This is that allow duplication checkbox that I mentioned earlier. Probably not appropriate or necessary for a student report to be duplicatable, but it is possible. And then, of course, I can change my metadata here if I want on this story map. So I'm going to go ahead and hit publish. This process has also changed a little bit. If you haven't published a story map lately, you now get this card. You get a QR code, and then you get the ability to copy that link. So let's just view our published story. Now remember, we had all those information widgets in there before. I did nothing to them, but they are gone. They are gone. So all that remains are my sections that I should have filled out as I was working on my book report, followed up by my credit block at the bottom. Okay. So this is what a student experience might look like when we have a template. So we're going to start over very briefly, get rid of my student experience. Now, I'm logged in. I'm still logged in with my T3G account, and I am back on the template. This is the same template. It's got my information, widgets, and so forth. I'm now teacher B, and I see teacher A's book report template, and I think, it isn't great, but it would save me a lot of time if I just started with their template. Let's be honest. So I can go over here, and I'll use my pull down menu, and you'll notice that I now have this duplicate template option. So as teacher B, I can duplicate the template, and it's going to say, yeah, you want to duplicate the template? And you say, yes, in fact, I do. And it's going to create a copy of that template for me, teacher B, to modify and publish as a template for use with my kids. So you can see how, especially in terms of designing instructional materials, these things can be very flexible and very adaptable. So if I want to modify the directional text, I can do that. Maybe I want something else in here. I don't know why, but maybe we'll say the book author should be there because of the title is up here. Probably don't need that. And so I've got some changes made. Let's just call this number 2 so we remember it. And then I'm going to go ahead and publish. And recall, I'm publishing it as a template. And you'll notice that duplication is automatically turned on. I want to set my sharing level. I'll set it to organization. Again, I could change metadata. I'm just going to hit publish. And now I'm publishing a StoryMap template. And I've set this sharing to